Hey, what's going on, everybody? We're on day 3 of our gate build. Today we're focusing on the slide mechanism for it. Let's challenge the build. So I spent this morning finishing welding up the gate. As you can see, I got my level and the angle finder on it. So in finishing the welding, all I did was put a little support on the back end of the rail to help stiffen it up a little bit. I kind of have it set on blocks to start laying out the track system. So I have it set where I need it to be set. Come up here and look at the level, and you will see that it is not perfectly level, which is okay. Ultimately, in an ideal situation, you would want it to run level. I think we're sitting like right about 1 or 2 degrees. So in order to work on the track system, I started doing some layout. What I'm going to do is run a bracket here for the track. You can see I have a piece of 1.5 inches in the slide track that's welded to the fence. So this 1.5 inches is going to get mounted to the fence posts. So it'll have a track on the fence approximately 21 feet long that runs the length, and then the gate will slide on the track. So I spent a couple minutes doing some measuring and some sketching. We'll go back into the shop and we'll start cutting the pieces that we need for the track system. All right, so now we're back in the shop. You can see I have some of my stuff already set up and laid out. You're probably looking at this, wondering, wow, how the heck does he know what he's doing when all is just a bunch of scribble? Like I said before, I have a very visual mind. I generally always have an idea of what I want to do in my brain, but I have a really hard time getting it out on paper or cardboard for this instance. But you know, I'm sure you guys watching this video have your own way of designing and building. Me looking at this, I know what I need. So essentially what I've determined is I'm going to run an angle bracket off of the fence posts and then weld flat steel to it like this. So the 2 pieces of flat will be through bolted to the fence post, and then the 1.5 inch square tubing gets welded up here, and essentially I will make a slide channel for the gate. And again, as I continue building, I think it will make sense to you as what I'm trying to do. So the 4x4 is 3.5 inches in width, so I need 12. Ultimately I need 6 brackets, 3 for the top track and 3 for the bottom track. So in order to have enough material, I need 12 pieces of flat for all the brackets, and then I need 6 pieces of angle for the brackets that I'm going to make. So just before I start cutting the materials needed, remember, if you've watched my part 1 of the fence, you saw a little mishap with the angle grinder. So this is our little safety brief. As always, try to remain as safe as possible. I already have my earplugs in. I'm going to be using a face shield and my leather TIG welding gloves while I am cutting the material. Now, one thing you may have noticed when I was welding on the fence, I didn't clean any of the metal, and everybody has their own personal preference on that. Should you do it every time? Probably, but I did it on the fence. However, on the brackets I'm making, due to the thickness of the metal, I'm using 1/4 inch plate and 1/4 inch angle, and before I weld the slide brackets, I did go ahead and clean the metal due to the fact of how much slag and dirt and grease and just junk is on the metal. Make it so this is a before and this is an after of what it looks like after you clean it, and that ensures a much better weld and better penetration on the material that you're welding. So this is 3 inches and this leg is 2 inches, only because of the projection on the fence. I had to trim it down a little bit, and if I had 2-inch angle it would have worked, but since I didn't, I used what I had laying around, so I just went ahead and trimmed it down. Alright, so I'm getting set up to weld these brackets together. What I ended up doing was I put a 3/16 steel plate that I had laying around down on my workbench to give me a nice heavy surface to work off of, followed by my 2 flat stock 1/4 inch plates, and then you can obviously see my angle. So this here is going to mount on the fence post. I set it up using a magnetic clamp, double checked it with my square, everything looks good. The process is going to be tack welding it together, double checking for square, and then keep the heat consistent on the bottom and the back sides. So you'll see me flip flop it a couple times and welding it on both sides to keep the heat as constant and equal as possible. Okay, now that I have them welded up, I took my grinder and cleaned some of the welds up on the back side so that they sit nice and flush on the back sides of the posts. I still have a couple more to clean up. Now the next step is attaching these to the rail, which I have already started working on. Again, the rail is 1.5 inch square 1/8 wall. I've already taken the time to measure the length that I need to be able to attach it from post to post to post, which my measurement was 126 3/4. So I've cut my rail down, both of them, to 126 3/4. One thing that you're going to want to do with the rail is you're going to want to bevel the seam so that way you can get a good penetrating weld through here and then grind it smooth, so that way the gate can slide over the weld without being hung up on it. And then obviously you still want to have a good weld in there, so that's why beveling is important. And then the next thing, once we get the track welded together, is we are going to start attaching the brackets we made to the rail. So I have a piece of 5/8 flat stock that I'm going to use as a spacer, and then we take our bracket, put it on the 5/8 flat stock, we'll square everything up, and then we'll weld the bracket to the rail, which the 5/8 flat stock allows it to run in the center of the tube.
Perfect, perfect, perfect,
Alright, well, I finished welding the brackets on the channel, and I've got some good news to report. The system is working as intended. As you can see, this is what the end profile of the channel looks like. And now I think you can start to see how the channel on the fence slides into the rail. I took a minute to slide it in a little bit, and it takes a little bit of effort just because of the weight of it, but the rail slides in to the fence just as designed. I hope the lighting's good. I'm having a hard time seeing myself. So there's why I cut the slit in the channel on the fence, so that way it can slide through the bracket on the rail. And then I've got 3 brackets that get mounted to the fence posts. And this way here, once the rail is attached to the fence, you can push the gate open that way, and it will slide on the rail that we just made. So I'm still going to put the rollers on it. And clean up the channel a little bit with the grinder wheel, see where it's binding up, because I know it's not perfectly straight. But now I just have to duplicate this rail for the bottom and mount rollers and install it. So we still got a little ways to go. I'm going to go back in the shop and start welding up the other rail, and then we'll get into mounting the rollers. So this is where we are going to end day 3 of our gate build. I have proceeded to weld the other rail together. I also have set up the first rail for the rollers. I started measuring and setting out my roller design on the rail. This would be the top rail. So I'm pretty satisfied with how everything's going. We are getting closer to the end. Before I go any farther on the build, I have to take some time and clean up the garage because of how messy it is. I can only work to a certain point, and then I got to stop and reset. So this is the end of day 3. I want to thank everybody for hanging out with me today. I enjoyed making this video for you guys. In the upcoming video for the gate project, we will be focusing on installing the rollers in the rail and hopefully installing the rails and trying to get this gate to slide back and forth to actually see if it's going to work the way I hoped. So in the meantime, please give me a thumbs up, like this video, so that way it gets out to more and more people throughout YouTube so they can enjoy the content. And drop me a comment in the comment section below. Let me know how I'm doing for you guys. In the meantime, remember, challenge to build. I'll see you in the next video.